Welcome to Modern Farm Business Podcast. This podcast is designed to help the farm leader bring their business to the next level. We'll cover everything from leadership and finance to strategy and planning. I'm your host, Dean Hefta. As leaders, one of our responsibilities is investing in and developing those who will come after us. This can happen in how we raise our children, the responsibilities that we give to our team and our business, as well as how we get involved in our community. Community involvement can be with a local school program or area boards that you participate in. And an organization that I'm a big fan of, and we're going to hear from today, is called Agriculture Future of America. And joining me today is Nancy Barcus, Chief Operating Officer at Agriculture Future of America, a Kansas City-based organization focused on helping young leaders engage in the world of food and agriculture. She manages AFA's internal operations as well as leads the development and evaluation of program initiatives. Nancy is an alumni of the University of Missouri-Columbia and has been with the AFA program for more than 13 years. Welcome to the show, Nancy.
Thanks, Dean. I'm glad to join you today.
Yeah, I'm excited. So let's set the stage. Who is AFA?
Well, we are a nonprofit organization, as you mentioned. We've been around about 22 years. So we started in the late 90s. And really, we seek to be a catalyst in the preparation of the next generation of agriculture leaders. And we do that by building bridges. We want to build bridges for young leaders to foster engagement and innovation. And what that means to us is bridging to new learnings and training, bridging to relationships with their peers and to industry professionals in a way that really they can better accelerate their ability to contribute on the job to lead our industry forward.
So that's cool. How do you guys go about exposing those young people, those opportunities, and building those bridges?
We do that in about three different ways. Number one, we want to support college men and women who have chosen agriculture and a career by providing academic support into their academic pursuits. So we provide academic scholarships. As important as that technical learning is at that age, though, we know that investing in yourself as a leader is very important. So a core of what we do is to provide leader development events and opportunities where they can sharpen their saw, if you will, and focus on employability skills that will serve them on the job and in their communities. And then finally, we try to provide exposure to really what that career could look like, or to those that are in the industry and can talk about the opportunities and challenges ahead of us through some of those face-to-face events that we offer, but also networking opportunities and linking them to things like internships and other work experiences or experiences in general that will aid them in making decisions about where they're headed and about giving context to the things that they're most interested in agriculture and how they can apply themselves.
Very cool and so powerful when you think about the impacts that you're able to have on people very early in their careers and the trajectory and the impact they can have in the world of agriculture. Now, when you think about developing leaders, and it happens in all kinds of situations throughout our life, that development. As a business leader listening to this program, what are some of the principles from AFA that I can apply and use in my business or in my community?
Yeah, I think the core, as I think about that, is that leadership happens at all levels in communities and in organizations and in informal and formal roles. You don't have to have a title or position to lead, right? So as we think about how that translates in helping young people, and I think that all of your listeners can give thought to in their communities and organization, is how do we perpetuate a culture and an environment of intellectualism and entrepreneurialism. Entrepreneurialism is a word that we use that I don't know that a lot of people have had access to or have thought about, but it's really when we're actively pursuing change and innovation, both personally and in our relationships with systems and organizations and people. And that's the core of what we try to develop in a young person through our programs. And when it comes to intellectualism, I think about that in terms of having a growth mindset and being positioned to be a lifelong learner, that all of us should always be thinking about how can we grow and learn, and how can we help others do that as well.
Very cool. What are some ways that you see those principles that you're working to teach the college students that are part of your program? How do you guys see that playing out even as leaders of the AFA?
That's an excellent question. We really have to think critically, and certainly part of our strategic plan as we've been at this for a couple of decades is how do we make sure that as a professional development organization, we are practicing what we preach, from our board leadership to our staff development and their needs to the student leaders and volunteers that help guide us. And so we're going through a lot of things right now to make sure that our thoughts and exposures are as cutting edge and have as much of that growth mindset about how we're growing each other and how we're growing the organization in a way that'll continue to keep AFA relevant and important for years ahead.
Yeah, I love the phrase growing each other, because when we're a part of something, whether it's a small farm or a board in our community, there is really that element of how are we helping each other get better? And that's really the advantage of being a part of something, because when we're around people that are good, it helps us to get better. And I'm sure you experience that, whether it's applying your principles to leading the organization, seeing the college students together at conference or in different experiences that you have, or in your own life, the people that you're around, you find that it's being around people that challenge you, that help you to grow.
It is.
So when you think about what you've observed, you've been around a lot of industry professionals, leaders at very high levels within agriculture. You've seen students that have become industry leaders themselves. But when you think about growing that next generation, what are some of the mistakes that maybe you've observed that us as leaders want to make sure to avoid?
Yeah, I think about this in terms of what are just generational differences and what are some of the constants over time, and trying not to make too many generalities about, generations, if you will, along the way. I think that some of the things that I see is confusing a young person's enthusiasm and desire for growth with entitlement, or perhaps not being able to channel that enthusiasm correctly in the opportunity an organization or a community has to provide. I think that's both an opportunity and challenge for us to put our arms around in engaging and developing the next generation at all times. But certainly it's something that I've seen a lot of most recently. And there are areas where I've seen success and areas where I've seen that be a challenge. Another thing is, and perhaps these are related, is maybe just not fully appreciating the strengths that young people bring or capitalizing on those in an organization. And some of that comes around just what that might look and feel like in terms of change. But especially as we think about this next generation's access to and experience with technology, they come with a set of ideas and talents that our workforce maybe hasn't seen, and just because of how our society has changed. The one other thing I was going to add is that this generation is one that appreciates and looks for pretty immediate feedback. And we've maybe had a traditional culture that's more oriented towards providing feedback at different points in time. And those that are most successful can be very specific with feedback and giving it very frequently to a young person to help shape their habits and the expectations for them moving forward.
Yeah, and that feedback can be both what's working that you should do more of and keep doing, as well as where I'm off target. So feedback can be construed as letting them know what they're doing wrong, but really feedback is helping me to know where I'm at. Just like when we're, using GPS to navigate to a new place, it's continually giving us feedback, letting us know that we're on track or if we're getting off track. Now, you've been around AFA long enough to see thousands of young people impacted by the organization. Are there some stories of that impact that stand out to you?
Most definitely. And I think of those in a couple different areas. One is the power of the network that we create, and others are exemplifications of, where a young person has gone through training around a skill and how that's come to life in their career. Several years ago, a young person that had been through our program very early on and was a student leader with us called our office at the end of the day to share that something that he had been charged with by our CEO to envision when he was in college about what success looked like for the AFA experience had come to be that day. And what the situation was is he served on a national leadership committee for policy development across a trade association. And those environments can often bring competitors to the table to try to come to common decisions to help move their industry forward. And this particular day, they were having frustrations in that dialogue. And it so happened that one of the committee members was late. And when that person arrived, it turned out that that person was a fellow AFAer. They had met in college and maybe hadn't crossed paths a lot, but they were able to reconnect that relationship. And because of some of those common experiences, they were able to move the needle in that conversation and bring the group to consensus. And he felt like that was an exemplification of what he'd always hoped that AFA would provide for our industry, is those strong relationships and skills that lead our industry forward. Very cool. Another example that I think about really exemplifies the idea of entrepreneurialism. And that is a young woman who took creative thinking and system thinking to the max in terms of she's a young woman that within her first couple of years with a major railroad company brought the idea to senior leadership of incorporating the Shark Tank model. If you're familiar with the TV show Shark Tank, where you pitch an idea to investors, and they incorporated this idea in that their senior leaders would come together, and they actually had a space in their building where any employee could bring an idea in front of that group of executives for the chance of let's say it's $10,000 to put some effort behind that idea if that group felt like it was the right thing and a great area for that company to innovate. And she's pretty modest about sharing that story, but to me, it exemplifies the type of attitude and approach that we're bringing into our training and setting our young people up to bring into their workplaces.
Well, that's a great story. And it's so powerful because in this economy, in this day and age, we have to have everybody in the organization thinking about how we can get better, how we can innovate, how we can compete. And what a great illustration of using that innovation to say, how do we reinvent how we get ideas in the organization to come up? And even small organizations can struggle to really pull those ideas forward. You get into any organization with multiple thousand employees, you can really lose a lot of ideas. So that's a great illustration. Now, AFA is a nonprofit organization. There's not just money though that it requires. What are some ways that you see people being able to support the work that you guys are doing as an organization?
Well, there's a lot of different ways that I think that our collective agriculture industry, from rural America into larger organizations across our industry, can support us. And one of those is just sharing. If you're listening to this program and you have an idea of someone in your life, a young person in your community who might benefit from the program, or ag teacher or school counselor close to you, to say, hey, have you heard of AFA? There are very much times that we are still a best known secret, or we get told that because we are young and we're just still reaching out across the country in many ways. And so I would encourage everyone to reach out and share with a family member or a friend in your community about AFA programs. Then the other is that in looking for support in your organizations or sharing with business partners that could support the organization. And just as you said, financial resources aren't the only need. We can't do what we do without the engagement of today's industry environment from all levels being at the table with us and our students. We have a ratio in some of our leader training environments where for every 2 students, we will have 1 industry professional in that environment. And that could be someone who's back in production and is talking about some of the opportunities, innovations, challenges there. Or it could be someone who is a senior executive in an organization. It's really all across the board. And there are also coaching and volunteer opportunities that we could engage people in a very meaningful way.
Awesome. So if I want to learn more about the organization, where should I go?
Well, of course, we would love to send you to our website. It's www.agfuture.org. You can certainly reach out to us by phone, 816-472-4232. But you'll find lots of information and ways to share your interests as a volunteer or partnering with us there on our website.
Awesome. So if I know of a young person in agriculture that would benefit by being exposed to something like this, make sure to let them know about AFA, a local ag teacher, get them involved and exposed. What a great organization. I appreciate the work that you do, Nancy, and sharing your insights with us today, and the work that the Agriculture Future of America does for the future of agriculture. And joining me today has been Nancy Barcus, Chief Operating Officer with Agriculture Future of America. It is a great organization, and thank you so much for joining us today, Nancy.
Thank you, Dean. I'm happy to be here.